Greetings, friends. It's your friendly neighborhood PhD, Dr. Jed Burton, coming to you with another episode of the Beyond Report on this early morning Monday, April the 19th. As always, if you like the content, please click a like, subscribe, and share. And I thought I'd make another video while I'm out and about. Seems to be easier in some cases with using the phone, but although I prefer using my equipment at the desk, it's handy to be able to do this, especially when you run across a story, that you're reading on your news ticker or something like that, and you really feel like you need to say something about it. Well, first off, many of you be familiar with Whitley Streiber as the host of the radio show Dreamland. And also probably the books that he's written, most notably books like Communion on his alien abduction experience. And he's written some interesting stuff over the years, and I do like his show Dreamland, but he's got a new book out now called Jesus, A New Vision, and it's just out. I believe he's supposed to be on Coast to Coast AM tonight talking about it. And I've read the cover reviews and a few things. Of course, I haven't read the book itself yet. I'd like to do a more thorough analysis. But from everything that I read, there's some very core historical and theological errors that he makes in the execution of this book. Amongst other things, he says that Jesus committed suicide by crucifixion. And one of the interesting things that I noticed that he apparently talks about in the book is the notion that there was, to use his words, there was a kind of ultra-violence that was set off by Jesus's crucifixion, and I suppose the infant church movement, that led to the destruction of Roman polytheism and by virtue Roman culture. Now, I have a few things to say about this. And again, I'm qualifying this, the fact that I haven't read the book, but I have read a number of reviews that sort of summarize the content. Now, I'm not precisely sure what trajectory Streiber is taking with this, but if he's saying that the violence that occurred in the wake of Jesus' crucifixion is what directly brought about the end of Roman civilization, that fails to take into account the violence that had been enacted against peoples who were subjugated by the Roman Empire, notably the Jews, because one of the things that occurs in the wake of Jesus' death is the Jewish-Roman War between AD 66 and 70, which ultimately results in the destruction of the Second Temple. Not to mention the fact that, as evinced by all of the patristic literature of the early church, it seems to be, not to use a pun, but a lion's share of the violence was directed at Christians. There was widespread Christian persecution. That's attested in Christian history, that there was this, violent pogrom in a way against the infant church. And there were some pretty blatant, rather dire examples of this persecution, such as the great persecution that occurs under the reign of Diocletian, where it's believed that up to 10,000 Christians were killed during Diocletian's great persecution. Now, Streiber's commentary on the changes that the church brought about, bringing an end to Roman paganism, there's definitely some truth in that, because in the end, the patristics, the church fathers, who were writing, apologies against the polemics of pagan philosophers, they ultimately win the intellectual war. So I suppose there's some truth to that, but you also have to remember that the Roman Empire underwent some pretty significant changes, and it wasn't just purely Roman religion by that point in time. There were all kinds of mystery traditions, and Romans were involved in all kinds of Eastern cults from the Orient. In this case, the Orient being the Greco-Roman Near East. So, long story short, there was a sort of diffusion is probably not the right word, but a sort of watering down of Roman religion, and it had become so multi-tendrilled that there was really no kind of centrality to it at all, and that's going to be one of the things that contributes to its demise. And the fact that Christianity caught on so quickly is also testament to really how, certainly how, on the theological end, how the Holy Spirit is working on people. But people in the Roman Empire had become so bored in many ways with their religions that they were increasingly looking to the East for different religious experiences. And one of the most popular ones was Mithraism, but of course Christianity would sort of edge that out as the decades and centuries went on. So, as I understand it, there's also an argument about climate change, being part of the demise of the Roman Empire, and it just seems a little misdirected, and from what I can tell, fails to take into account the crisis of the 3rd century and all the ramifications of that, the economic upheaval and the massive influx of persons into the Roman Empire, and the currency issues that were taking place. So I'm not particularly impressed at this point in time, and my suspicion is that this book will be another example of what differentiates interest from authority. In other words, someone who actually has studied the history and the culture and the context of early Christianity, Jesus' death, his ministry, the Roman Empire in this case, and someone who is simply interested in it and approaching it from a kind of novice position. And I've talked about this on a number of occasions. This is the glaring difference between interest and authority, which it doesn't seem like Streiber is writing this book from a position of authority. In other words, that he's owned or researched the material. So time will tell. I'd like to take a closer look at this, but I'm not particularly sanguine about the serious historical treatment of the material that he's embraced, which is rather disappointing, because Streiber does have some interesting stuff. Well, one of the ways that you can remedy of some of the mistakes that Streiber has likely made with this book is better understanding the context of the biblical world and the ancient Near East. And you can do that by studying with the Institute of Biblical Anthropology and taking the apprenticeship certification in biblical anthropology. And it, along with the biblical demonology and the preternatural morphology certification this week will be on sale for $150. Keep in mind that you can also further your insights into the culture and context of the biblical world by taking the rudiments of New Testament Greek, and it continues to be $250. I'll leave that sale up this week. And if you're interested in any of these offerings, you can certainly email me at professorburton@yahoo.com to get registered for that. And again, I think that this book that Streiber's coming out will just further illustrate the necessity of understanding context and history and culture and language when treating topics as serious as this. So, all right. Well, I'll talk to you all soon, and everybody have a good day, and there'll be another Beyond Report before you know it. Godspeed.